Hello guys, welcome to the first video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video, we will learn what is JavaScript and how does it work. And if the time permits, we will also see how we can write our first JavaScript code. So first of all, what is JavaScript? JavaScript is a high-level, dynamic, untyped and interpreted programming language. And alongside HTML and CSS, it is one of the three most essential technologies of World Wide Web content production. Now, if you are using HTML and CSS, most probably you are generating only static pages for your website. And what is static? Static means there is no interactivity in your web page. You can only produce text, images, tables and frames, but there is no interactivity involved in your web page. Now JavaScript is just for that. So JavaScript allows you to add interactivity with your web page. So for example, you want to add a user and you want the user to log in to your website before accessing your content. So this can be added through JavaScript, right? Or you can use JavaScript to manipulate the actions of the user. For example, he clicks something and he wants to calculate the values of something, for example, addition of two numbers. You can do it with JavaScript very easily. Now, if you're thinking JavaScript is a very difficult language to learn, it's not. It's really easy to learn. And it was developed by Netscape first. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of interactivity? I will show you by example. So, for example, I have this temperature converter. Let's see on the actual web page how it looks like. So this is a temperature converter, right? Now all this is right now HTML and CSS, and for example, I want to convert a Celsius value into a Fahrenheit and Kelvin. I need to use JavaScript, or in fact I'm using JavaScript in this web page to calculate these values. So for example, I add 5 degrees Celsius here and I want to calculate the respective value of Fahrenheit and Kelvin. I can just click this convert button and JavaScript does it magic and it converts it and it shows it here. So this is the magic of JavaScript. Okay, now not only JavaScript calculates something, but it improves the appearance of your web page, especially if you are using graphics or visual feedback. It can also make your site navigation easier and interactive. And as I already said, that it can perform calculations and validation. Validation means just, for example, login page of your website, right? So how does it work? It can be embedded into your HTML page. So you can directly embed script element into your HTML code and you can use JavaScript. Otherwise, you can create a JavaScript file and add it into your HTML page. Okay. Now JavaScript is executed on the client side. So it's fast. And once it's loaded, no connection is needed from the server to execute or to make it work. Okay. Now it uses simple programming statement combined with HTML tag. And as I already said, it's an interpreted language. Now there are two types of languages. One is a compiled language and other is an interpreted language. Compiled language is a one when you compile it first and create a binary of it, and when you execute this binary, it will work. But the interpreted means, for example, JavaScript is an interpreted language, so we don't need to compile it, but it can be used directly on the browser and it can be interpreted by the browser. So you can say browser interprets it, and if it's valid, then it will be shown to the user, right? Now, some people thinks that Java and JavaScripts are almost same, but they are not. Java and JavaScripts are totally different languages. Okay, so for example, what is Java? Java is a full programming language which is much harder to learn, and it's a compiled language, and it's independent of web. So you can use Java with web technologies, but it's not necessary that you have to use web technologies with Java. It can, do its stuff on its own without any web technology, right? On the other hand, JavaScript is an interpreted language which has its own syntax. And what we need to code JavaScript, one is the text editor and other is the browser. Okay, so you can choose any browser of your choice, and the text editor, for example, you can use Notepad or WordPad, which comes with Windows, or you can use Notepad++, which is a little bit more advanced version of Notepad, or you can use some IDE like Eclipse or NetBeans or IntelliJ IDEA, or there are many IDEs. IDEs stands for Integrated Development Environment, which you can use to code JavaScript. Okay. Now, if you want to learn JavaScript, most probably you need to revise your HTML skills, right? So because we use JavaScript mostly with HTML, so you need to have some idea of HTML also. Okay. Now, this is a small example of a JavaScript code. So you have HTML and you can add JavaScript code inside this HTML page. So let's see how we can do it. So I have this sample HTML code, and for example, I want to add this JavaScript code inside it. What I can do here is I can add a script tag here and just add this type is equal to text/JavaScript, so it knows which type of language it is, which is JavaScript, right? And in here, to for example, I want to print something on the web page, I can use document.write. So document.write, and here I can just write, for example, hello world, and don't forget to give the semicolon here, and I will save it and I will go to the web page on which I want to execute it and refresh my web page, and it shows hello world. Okay. Now, for example, I want to add some HTML tags inside this document. I can do it easily. Just add, for example, h1 tag at the start and ending tag at the last, which is same, and save your code and refresh your web page, and it's showing it in the h1 tags. Okay, so you can use JavaScript like this. Now we will learn more how we can use JavaScript and how we can create interactive web pages using JavaScript in the further videos. So stay tuned and please rate, comment and subscribe, and bye for now. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will see how we can install Notepad++, which is a code editor for JavaScript, or Eclipse IDE for developing your JavaScript project. So first of all, let's see how we can install Notepad++. So just open your browser and search for Notepad++, and the first option most probably will come here, will be from notepad-plus-plus.org. You can directly click download option from here, and in here they have the download option for Windows as an installer. So you just need to click this Notepad++ installer, and you just need to run the installer. Okay, and once the Notepad++ is installed, you just need to search for Notepad++, and it's going to look like this. Okay, now to make HTML5 here, you just need to create a new file and then right click on it and then save it as a HTML file. Okay, so just choose hypertext markup language from here and give the name to your file, for example test.html. okay, and save it and here you can write your code. For example, my code looks like this, which we have seen in the last video. And to run this, first you need to save it and then go to this option called run, and here you will be able to see some options depending upon the browser installed on your system. So it says launch in Firefox, Internet Explorer, Chrome or Safari. So we want to do it in Firefox, so launch it in Firefox. So choose this option and it's going to open this in Firefox. Okay, so this is how you can install Notepad++. Now let's see how we can install Eclipse IDE on our Windows operating system. So to install Eclipse IDE, you need to have Java JDK installed in your system because it's a prerequisite for installing Eclipse IDE. Now you just need to search for Java JDK here and just click the link which says oracle.com. Okay, so go inside here, and here you need to choose this option which says Java download, and once you click here you need to click this radio button which says accept license and condition, and you need to install or download the installer which says x64.exe, which is the last option we can see right now. If you have 32-bit operating system, you need to choose x86, which is the second last option from the top. Or if you have some other operating system like Mac OS or Linux, then you can choose those here as well. Once this executable file is downloaded, you just need to double click on it and run it, and it will probably take few seconds or few minutes to install it. And after installing, you will be able to see in your C folder of your Windows operating system, there will be a folder called program files, and in the program files you will be able to see this Java folder, and here you will find two folders. One is JDK and other is JRE. You can even change the name of these folder because when they were installed on my system, they were something like JDK 8.1. whatever. So I changed the name to this JDK 8 and JRE. And once you change the folder name, you can go to your search option for Windows and then search for system here. Okay, and for after installing Java JDK, you need to set the environment variable for Java so that Eclipse IDE can recognize this Java. Okay, so go to system, then go to advanced setting, and in the advanced setting go to environment variable, and in the environment variable you just need to go to this system variable called path and double click on it. And in here what you need to do is you just need to copy the path where your JDK folder is. So just go inside this JDK 8 folder and then go inside this bin folder. Okay, and then copy this path from here and go at the last and give the semicolon and paste this path up to bin. Okay, so I have already done this, so I will not do it again, but you need to do it here. And same you need to do it with JRE folder. So go into the JRE folder and then go to bin folder and copy the path and go at the last, give the semicolon, one semicolon here, and then paste the path here. Okay, once you do that, click OK and OK and OK. Okay, and now your environment variables are set. Now after installing Java and setting the environment variable, you need to go to the Eclipse website, which is eclipse.org/download. Or let's see how is this homepage looks like for the Eclipse IDE. So you will be able to see this homepage like this, and then you can just click this download button, which will lead you to this page. Now you can see here they have introduced the Eclipse installer recently, so you can choose this installer and you don't need to worry about anything. So just click for this installer, for example 64-bit installer, and download it and install it, and it will ask you which version of Eclipse you want to install. So there are different type of Eclipse available on this website. For example, Eclipse IDE for Java EE, Eclipse IDE for Java Developer, Eclipse IDE for C++, Eclipse IDE for PHP. The one we want is Eclipse IDE for EE developers, and when you see the description you will see here that it can be used for web development, and you can use it for HTML or JavaScript projects, right? So I will prefer to choose this option, and depending upon the operating system I will choose 64-bit because my operating system is 64-bit. And once you click this you will be able to see different option to download. Okay, so you can see the one which is closer to my location is this one, so I can just click this option download and it will be downloaded to my computer. If you want to get it faster, you can see here there are different links. So for example, I can choose this IBM source from here and click this download button, and from here you can just click the 64-bit version and it will download a Eclipse zip file. Okay, so once you download this Eclipse zip file, it's going to look like this. So you just need to extract this zip file. So extract file, and I would like to extract this file in my C folder. So extract it in your C folder, and once you extract this Eclipse folder in your C folder, you go to this Eclipse folder here, and it's going to look like this. The contents are like this. Okay, so this is our executable which opens Eclipse IDE. You can just right click on it and you can send it to your desktop as a shortcut also. So send to desktop and it will create a shortcut. And if you want to open this Eclipse IDE, you just need to click this eclipse.exe file here. So just double click on it and it's going to open Eclipse IDE. So for the first time when you open Eclipse IDE, it's going to show you this option to create your workspace. Workspace is nothing but the location where all your project will be saved. Okay, so leave it as default and click OK. And it's going to open your Eclipse IDE. Now for the first time when you open Eclipse IDE, it's going to give you this kind of a welcome message which you can cancel from here. And to create a new project, what you need to do is you need to go to File and go to New and choose Project from here. And in here you have two options to create a JavaScript project. One is go to the JavaScript and select JavaScript project, or other one is go to web folder and select static web project for now. So for now I'm going to choose this static web project and click next, and now I'm going to give the name to my project, for example test project for example. Okay, and now you can just click finish and it's going to create you this project. Now you can open multiple project inside this Eclipse IDE. You can see one I was already using, so I can right click on this project which I was using and I can close this by selecting this option, close project. Okay, and it's going to close my project. Okay, or if you want to delete this project from this project explorer, you can right click and click delete, and if you click OK, it's going to delete it from this project explorer, but it's not going to delete it from your hard disk. Okay, so in order to delete it forever, you just need to check this option and it's going to delete it forever. Okay, now this is my project here and it contains one folder called web content which is empty. So I will right click on it and I will create a new HTML file here, and I will name it as, for example, test.html and click finish, and it's going to create me the HTML file. Okay, now this Eclipse IDE gives you the inbuilt web browser to test your code. Okay, so you can just go to the location where this text.html is inside the web content folder, right click on it and then go to open with and then click web browser, and Eclipse has its own web browser which you can use to run your code. So for example, I can add some JavaScript code here, for example script, and as we have done last time, we are going to just add document here dot write, and we can just add hello world and save your code and refresh this web page, and it's going to give you this hello world output here. Okay, so in this way you can install Notepad++ or Eclipse IDE to create your new JavaScript project. Now you can choose either of them. I will be using this Eclipse IDE, but if you wish, you can also choose this Notepad++ editor. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video, we will learn about comments and variables in JavaScript. So let's get started with comments. You can give comments in JavaScript in two ways. One is a single line comment, and you can give a single line comment by giving 2 forward slashes and then your comment. For example, my code. Okay, so this is how you can give a single line comment, and whatever you write after these 2 double forward slashes will not be executed by your JavaScript code. Or you can give a comment by giving these forward slash and then asterisk and then asterisk and forward slash. Okay, and whatever comment you will give in between this forward slash and asterisk and forward slash, it will be considered as a comment. So if you want to give a multi-line comment, you can give something like this. Okay, so this is how you can use comments in JavaScript. Now let's talk about variable. So first of all, what is a variable? A variable is a container which can contain some data. So for example, we can assign a variable, or we can name a variable like x, and then we can assign some data, for example 1, into it, right? So x is a variable which contains the value of 1. Now in JavaScript, to declare a variables, there are some rules. Okay, so there are mainly I think 3 or 4 rules you need to remember whenever declaring the variable. First rule is you can declare a variable using numbers, letters, a dollar symbol, or an underscore. Okay, so you can declare a variable something like my variable or my variable, something like this. Okay, your variable name can also start with a dollar symbol. So for example, dollar my variable, or you can also start your variable name by underscore like this, my variable. Okay, you can also declare a variable using a number after a letter or a keyword. For example, you want to declare x1, you can declare a variable, but a variable cannot start with a number, so this is not valid. Okay, so x1 is valid, but 1x is not valid because your variable cannot start with a number. The next rule is your variable cannot contain the reserved keywords in JavaScript. So there are a number of keywords which are reserved in JavaScript, and with this course, when we learn more, we will learn more about these keywords. For example, there is a keyword called var, or there is a keyword called function. These are reserved keywords, and you cannot declare a variable using these keywords. Okay, now I will show you some more interesting stuff. So if you have a Google Chrome browser, just open your Google Chrome browser and then right click on it, and then go to the last option which says inspect element. Okay, and this is the thing which will help you to debug and find the errors into your JavaScript code. So for example, go to console here, and in here, for example, I will declare a variable called x is equal to 1 and press enter, and it will give you the result 1, something like this. I will make it a little bit bigger, so it will give you the result 1, right? Or for example, you can give a variable called y is equal to 5, and it will give you the result 5. Now you have two variables x and y which you can use in your console here. So for example, x plus y, when you enter, it will give you 6 because x is equal to 1 and y is equal to 5, and when you add these two, it will give you 6, right? Now I have told you that a variable cannot start with a number. So let's check here if this variable, when we declared with a number, will it pass or not. So 1 my well, for example, okay, which start with a number, and press enter, and it will give you this error which says uncaught syntax error, right? So this is not allowed. But when we declare a variable something like my well and assign some value in here, then it's not going to give you the error. Now let's try to declare a variable with an underscore. For example, underscore my well is equal to 1, and press enter, and it's totally valid. And now let's try to declare a variable with a dollar symbol. So dollar and my well, and this is equal to 6, for example, and it's also totally valid. Okay, so this console will help you to debug your code and even show you if you have some errors in your code, right? Now let's see how these variable works in JavaScript. So for example, you declare a variable called x is equal to 6 and y is equal to 10. Okay, so I have already told you that you can do something like x plus y, and it will give you the sum. And whenever you will do x or y minus x, then it will give you the subtraction. You can do the opposite, x minus y, and it will give you the minus value, right? Now to multiply these two numbers, you can do y multiplied by x. So asterisk is the multiplication symbol in JavaScript. So press enter, and it will give you the multiplication. Whenever you do, for example, y divided by x, so y divided by x is 1.6, whatever is the value of this division, it will give you. Now there is a special symbol called mod in JavaScript. So whenever you do y mod x and press enter, then it will give you the remainder of the division of the variable you are dividing. So the value of y was 10 and the value of x was 6. So when you divide y by x, then you will get 4 as remainder. So this modulus gives you the remainder. Now JavaScript is also intelligent enough to recognize what operation you want to do with your numbers. For example, you want to do 4 minus 4 multiplied by 5, it will give you minus 16 and not 0, right? So it will give the importance to the multiplication first and then the subtraction. Or for example, you want to divide and multiply and add or subtract something at the same time, it will give the precedence something like multiplication, then division, then addition, and then the subtraction. Okay, or if you want to make your code more clear, you can do something like this. So you can add a bracket here, and inside this bracket you can do 4 minus 4, and then after the bracket you can do multiplied by 5 and press enter, and it will give you 0 because this bracket has more priority than your multiplication or your division symbols. Okay, So in this way, you can use these variables and comments in JavaScript. By the way, if you are using Firefox, you can also use this console. So go to Firefox and right click, and once again go to inspect element, and in here go to console, and you have this console here, x is equal to 1, and it will give you the same answer. Okay, so if you have a Firefox or a Google Chrome, you can debug your code and find errors in it and do many more things with this view here. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will learn about data types in JavaScript. So there are basically 5 data types in JavaScript, which is strings, numbers, boolean, arrays, and objects. Arrays and object we will learn in further videos, and in this video we will discuss about string, numbers, and boolean data types. So to declare a variable in JavaScript, you need to declare it with a keyword called var, and it's like a data type in JavaScript. So unlike in other languages like Java or C++, you literally give the data type like int or bool or string here, but in JavaScript you give just this keyword called var and then your variable name. So for example, my number, and then you can initialize this variable by some value, for example 10, and by initialization JavaScript deduce the data type of a variable. So here it's initialized with a number, so this data type of this variable will be a number, right? Now let's print this value. So there is a function in JavaScript which is called alert, and it takes one argument. It can be a string or a number or anything, right? So to print a variable, you just need to copy it and pass it as an argument of this alert function, and save your code and refresh your web page, and it gives you this number in the form of alert. Okay, now this number can be of different type. For example, if you want to initialize this variable by a decimal number or floating point, you can use it something like 10.213 or some decimal points, right? Or it can be a exponent value, so you can initialize it something like 10e5, which means 10 into 10 to the power 5. So let's save it and refresh our web page, and it will give you this value, right? Or you can do something like 10e minus 5, which means 10 multiplied by 10 to the power minus 5, and save it and refresh your web page, and it gives you this decimal value, right? Now to declare a boolean value in JavaScript, you do the same. So var the variable name, my bool, and then you declare it with true or false. So it can be true or it can be a false value. Okay, so a boolean is a data type which can contain either true or false. So this time we are going to initialize it by true, for example, and just pass it in here in the alert argument and save it and refresh your web page, and it will give you true. Okay, and if you would have initialize it by false, then it will give you false. So refresh your web page and it gives false here. Okay, now let's see how we can declare a string in JavaScript. So once again give var and then give the name to your variable, for example my string, and then is equal to, and in double quotes whatever you write in between the double quote, it will be your string, right? So for example my name is whatever, right? And just pass this variable in the alert function and save it and refresh your web page, and it gives you this string value here. Okay, now for example, you want to display a string with some double quotation or something. So for example, something like this. Okay, and this will give you the error. So when I save it and when I refresh my web page, it gives me nothing, and it gives me this syntax error, and it says missing semicolon before statement. Okay, and you can even go to this error by clicking here on the right hand side, and it shows me this line. Okay, so this error is coming from this line, we know, right? And why this error is coming? Because these double quotes you cannot use inside your string variable. So you can uh, add any string inside your double quotes at the left hand side and the right hand side, but whenever you try to include these double quote inside a string, it will give you an error. And it's obvious because JavaScript will think that this string starts here and ends here. Okay, and whatever comes after, it doesn't know what is it. So to avoid this error, what you can do is you can use a operator called escape operator. Okay, and you can use it something like this. So you use backslash just before your double quotation symbol, so here and here, and this means whatever comes after this double slash, it will be considered as a part of the string. Okay, so save it and refresh your web page, and now it will give you the answer. So my and this quotation and then the name. Okay, something like this. Now there is a keyword in JavaScript which is called type of, and this keyword, whatever you will write after this, for example, I'm writing this variable name my string after this type of keywords separated by one space, then it will give you the type of this keyword. Okay, so let's save it and let's see what it returns. So I will refresh it and it gives me string. So this keyword gives you the data type of your variable. Okay, so you can check what this variable is, so my bool, and save it and refresh your web page once again, and it will give you boolean. Okay, and once again I will pass this my number here and save my code and refresh my web page, and it gives me this number. So you can find the data type of a variable or some value using this type of keyword. So in this way you can use data types in JavaScript. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will learn about if-else statement in JavaScript and how to use some of the comparison operators in JavaScript. So let's get started. So first of all, why do we need to use if-else statements? So sometimes in your code you need to use some conditions on the basis of which you want to execute some code, and if-else statement will help you to do exactly that. So for example, I want to check the age of the person, if it's greater than 18, equal to 18, or less than 18. Okay, so I have a variable called age whose value initially I assign is equal to 18. Okay, and to check whether it's 18 or it's below 18 or it's greater than 18, you want to check it and then execute some code. Okay, so you can use if statement for that, and the basic syntax for if statement is if keyword and then these brackets and then these curly braces, and in here in these round bracket your condition will be evaluated, and if this condition in these bracket are met, then this code is executed inside these curly braces. Okay, so let's check the condition. Okay, so I have this variable called age, and I want to check whether it's equal to 18 or not. So I just give these two equal to sign and I evaluate against 18. Now these double equal to means equality. Okay, so this is for checking the equality. This single equal to is the assignment operator, right? And this double equal to is the equality checking operator. Okay, so if this condition is met, then we want to execute some code. For example, we want to print something using document.write, and we will say the age is equal to 18. Okay, and save your code and refresh your web page here, and it says the age is equal to 18. Okay, now let's say in the case when this age is not equal to 18, we want to execute some other code. So in that case we use else condition. So just write else and then these curly braces. Okay, so when this condition in if statement is not true, your program logic comes to else condition and it executes the code which is inside these curly braces after else. Okay, so I will just copy this here and I say age is not equal to 18, and let's say right now the age is 20. We assign age is equal to 20 and save it and refresh your web page, and now it says age is not equal to 18. Okay, now not only you can use equality here, you can also compare non-equality. For example, I want to compare non-equality. I give this exclamation mark and then this equal to sign, and I can save it and I can refresh my web page and it says the age is equal to 18. Okay, which is here. Okay, so I'm checking whether my age is not equal to 18, and right now the age is equal to 20, right? So it goes here because the condition is true, because 20 is not equal to 18, so it prints this statement. Okay, now there are few operators which are called comparison operator, which you can use in place of these equal and non-equal signs. Okay, so let's see what are they. So these are some of the comparison operator we can use in JavaScript. So we have already seen how to check equality. Now let's see what does these triple equal to do. Okay, so for example, I have age is equal to 18 here, and I want to check if our age is equal to 18. Obviously this will print this statement because this condition is true. Now we all know that right now age is a integer variable because we have assigned a number to it. Now let's see and check whether it gives this statement if we compare this age against a string value, right? So just save it and refresh our web page, and it says the age is equal to 18, right? So right now this double equal to only checks the value and not the type of your value. But when you use triple equal to, it will check the value as well as the type of your variable. Okay, so now let's see what happens. So save it and refresh your web page, and now it says the age is not equal to 18 because these triple equal to is checking whether the value is 18, which is yes, it's 18, but the type is string, right? And we are checking it against a number, so then it will go here because this condition is not met. Okay, so this is how you can use triple equal to. Non-equality we have already seen. This exclamation mark with double equal means we are checking non-equality in value and non-equality in type also. Okay. Now the next symbol is for checking if the value is greater than the value. So for example, we can use these angle brackets, and here we use the number, for example 18 once again, and let's change this print message here. So we can say age is greater than 18, and here we can say age is less than 18. Okay, and save your code and refresh your web page, and it says age is less than 18, right, which is this statement, because in our case age is equal to 18 and not greater than 18, right? Now the next symbol is to check whether age is greater than or equal to. Okay, so you can use this, and after this you can use equal to sign, and then it will check if age is greater than or age is equal to 18, right? So save your code and refresh your web page, and now it says the age is greater than 18. We must add this equal to symbol also here like this, so this message is more clear, right? Now in the same way we have the less than symbol. So whenever you use here the less than symbol, then it checks whether age is less than or equal to 18. Okay, so let's save it and refresh your code, and now it says the age is greater than or equal to 18, which is this statement. Okay, now let's say you want to check multiple conditions. So how you can do this? So in JavaScript you can also use nested if-else statement. So for example, here I'm checking if the value is 18, and if the value is 18 I will say value is equal to 18, and then I also want to check if the value is greater than 18 or not. So after this curly braces where this curly brace end, and before the else condition I can introduce one more if condition like this, and then you can do something like this, and here you can add the keyword called else. Okay, so it checks this condition, else if this condition is true then this statement will be executed, else otherwise this statement can be executed. So let's say we want to check if age is greater than 18 or not. Okay, so copy it here and let's replace with greater than. Okay, and let's say age is equal to 20 this time. Okay, so refresh your web page, and now it says the age is greater than 18. So what is our program flow? Our program goes to if condition and it checks whether 20 is equal to 18 or not, which is not, so it goes to next step and it checks this condition and it's check whether 20 is greater than 18 or not, which is true, so it execute this statement, and it don't need to go to the third statement because this is already true, right? So in this way you can also use if else statement in nested format. Okay, so in this way you can use if else statement in JavaScript, and you can use these comparison operators in JavaScript. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. And hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will discuss about using functions in JavaScript. So first of all, what is a function? A function is a block of code which performs some particular task. And why do we use it? We use functions to reuse our code because it's doing some function, and if we want to apply this particular task again and again in our code, then functions is the most beneficial thing to do. So let's see how we can use functions in JavaScript. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this script tag inside my body. Just keep in mind that you need to add the script tag inside your body element. Okay, And in here, first of all, let's see how functions prototype looks like. So this is how you declare a function. You need to use a keyword called function, and then you give the function name. And then in these brackets, you can provide some parameter. They can be none, or they can be one or two or many parameter. You can provide any number of parameters in a function like this. And inside the curly braces comes the body of the function. Okay, so let's apply this logic to create a function inside our JavaScript element or script element. So this is the function keyword, and then comes your function name. So for example, we want to print something, so I can just write print message. It's the name of the function. And for example, I don't want to give any argument, so it's taking no argument from here. And by using this function, what I want to do is, for example, I want to print some message when I call this function. Okay, so let's create a h1 element here. And in here, what I want to do is I want to add an attribute which is called ID, and I can name my ID anything, for example, demo. Okay, and now there is a function in JavaScript which is an inbuilt function, which is document. Then there is function called get element by ID, and what it does is it takes the element by ID. So our element is h1 here, and the ID is demo, right? So we need to give here the ID of our element, which we need to effect from this function. Okay, and then there is a function, one more function which we can call here, which is called inner HTML. Okay, is equal to, and then I can give any message or anything to this element using this assignment operator. So for example, I can just write hello, and then there is a term called calling a function. So once you create a function, you also need to call it. And how you call it? For example, I created this function and I just want to call it just below this function declaration here. So just write the name of the function and those brackets here, and then give this semicolon. And save your code and refresh your web page, and it will give you your message using this h1 tag. Okay, so this is how a function will work. Now I told you that function can take some parameters here. So for example, I create a second function which I name it as add here. And what it does is it takes two parameter, for example, num1 and num2. Okay, and these parameter names are given by the user. So it can be anything, x or y or num1 or num2 or number 1 or number 2. It's on you what parameter name you want to give here. Okay, and instead of printing anything here, I will just return from this function, right? So what I am going to return, just use a keyword called return, and then for example I want to return the addition of these two numbers, so just write num1 plus num2. Okay, and what it's going to do is whatever parameter you give here, it takes these two parameters and add these two numbers which you give here and returns the addition using this function. Okay, so let's see how we can use it. So I'm going to use this document.get element ID, something like this, and after this print message call, I can call this here document.get element ID. And for example, I'm going to add one more head element here, and in here I'm going to give the name to my ID for the second h1 tag, for example sum. Okay, so this is the ID of my h1 element, and I can pass this sum ID here, And instead of using hello world here, I can directly call this function, which is add, and I can pass two numbers here, for example 100 and 200, okay, because it's taking two numbers here, right? So save your code and refresh your web page, and now it gives you hello world, which is from our first function, and it gives you the addition of two numbers, which is 100 plus 200, which is 300, right? Now remember, I told you that by using function, it makes you easy to perform a particular task again and again. Okay, so in here we are adding 100 and 200, right? But for example, I want to add some other numbers, so I create one more h1 element, and the id name I change it to sum1, and here also I replace it by sum1, and here I want to add, for example, 1000 and 2000, okay, and save your code and refresh it, and it gives you 1000 plus 2000, which is 3000 here, okay. So notice here we are using the same function, but we are passing different parameters here, right? So we are reusing our code in a way, okay. So whenever you want to reuse your code, you may want to consider function. Now for example, I have two strings, so you can concatenate two strings using this plus operator, right? So for example, I have two strings like hello world, and save your code and refresh your web page, and it will give you hello world, right? So you are using the same function to concatenate two string using a function. So in this way you can use functions in JavaScript. So once again, I'm going to repeat the terms we have used. One is the function keyword. Whenever you declare a function, use function keyword, then a name. Then these are called parameters here. This is called the body, which you write inside these curly braces. You can return the result by using this keyword called return, and then return your result. Now whenever you want to execute this function, it's called calling a function, right? So you are calling this add function here, and whenever you give some real values as a parameter, they are called arguments, okay. So that's it for functions in JavaScript. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will learn how to use events in JavaScript. So first of all, what is an event? An event can be an action which is performed to do some work. For example, you click some button, you hover over some HTML element, or you press some key, right? So let's see how we can use events in JavaScript. So for example, I will create a button element here, and I add a text here, and as an attribute of this button I will add an event called on click, okay. So on click is an event, and when this button is clicked, I want to perform some action. For example, I want to alert something, right? Now keep in mind, here we are using single code inside alert, for example hello world, and I think you may understood this because we are including alert in double quotes, and if you use double quotes here, it will be not escaped and it will create some problem, okay. So let's save our code and refresh our web page, and you see this button, and when you click this button, it will show you this message called hello world, right? Now for example, I will create one more item here. For example, it is a h1 tag, and the ID of this h1 tag is, for example, my ID, okay. And instead of using this, I can use this method in JavaScript which is called get element by ID, and give your name of your ID, which is my ID, and keep in mind, just add this ID in single quotes here, right? then dot inner HTML, and there is a method in JavaScript called date, and this returns current date and time. Okay, so save your code and refresh your web page, and once you click this button, it's going to give you the current date and time with time zone here also. Now there can be different type of event which are possible, and most common events are these. So on click we have already used. For example, let's say we are using on mouse over. Okay, so instead of on click, let's paste on mouse over here. Save your code and refresh your web page, and when you hover over your button, not click but hover over, and it will show you the result. And once again, when you hover, it will refresh the time, right? You see it's refreshing the time in second. Okay, now instead of using this JavaScript functionality here, you can use a JavaScript function. So just add a JavaScript function like this. In the script tag, make a function called show, and what it does is it's doing the same job as this code. Okay, so I'm going to remove this code from here, and instead of this code, I can call this JavaScript function, right? Save your code and refresh your web page, and when you hover over your mouse, once again you see the same result. Now for example, you want to show this time on this button itself. What you can do, you can do something like this. So just copy this inner HTML is equal to date, and just write this dot inner HTML is equal to date, and save your code and refresh it, and when you hover over it, it will show the date on your button. Okay, so you can do this also. Now to use this on load event, what you can do is you can go to your body element and call this on load event is equal to the function. For example, we want to perform this function. Okay, so do this, and then you can remove this button because we don't need it right now, and save your code. And once you refresh your code, it will show you this date and time when your body element loads. Now to use this on key down event, what you can do here is instead of a button, you can use input, and this input can be of type text, and then you can call this on key down event here, and you can call this function to your on key down event, so like this. Okay, and save your code and refresh your page, and then it will show you this, right? So whenever you enter something in this input box, then your time will change, right? You can see here. Okay, now we must remove this from here in order to understand it clearly. So once again, refresh your web page, and whenever you enter something, it refreshes your time. Okay, so in this way you can use these events in JavaScript. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will see how to use arrays in JavaScript. Now first of all, what is an array? An array is a variable which is capable of storing more than one value. Okay, so using array you can store multiple value in a variable. Now let's see how we can declare an array in JavaScript. So you use var to declare an array as any other variable, and then the name of a variable. For example, we want the collection of name or multiple names in a variable, and then you use the square bracket to declare them. And for example, I'm going to add some names here. something like this. So this array name has 4 names inside it, so it's storing 4 different names, right? Now to access this array, for example, you want to access the first element of this array. How you can do it? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just print this value using document.getElement by ID, and I have this paragraph tag here whose ID is demo, which I'm calling here dot inner HTML is equal to, and for example I want to print the whole array, so I can just call this like this, okay, and save your code and refresh it, and you will see here all the names printed on the web page, right? So arrays has some indexes, and indexes is nothing but the position at which the value is stored, and this value starts from 0 in the case of array. So this position of the first value is 0 index, because the index start from 0. So the index of Tom is 0, John is 1, and Bill is 2, and Mark is 3, right? So for example, I want to access this name John, so I can just write here name and then in the square bracket 1, and 1 is the index here, okay, and save your code and refresh it, and it's printing John. Now for example, I want to access this name Tom here, the index of it is 0, okay, and just save it and refresh it, and then it will give you Tom, right? So indexes in array start from 0. Now if you want to change some item at some index, what you can do here is you can just call the name of your array and then the index on which you want to change. So for example, I want to change this name Tom, and I want to make this name starting with capital T, not with small t. So I will just use name 0 and then is equal to the new name, right? So the new name is Tom with the capital T, right? And thus just save your code and now refresh it, and now you can see the name becomes Tom with capital T, right? Now using this method, you can also add some items to the array. So right now I have 4 items in my array, and the index of these items are 0, 1, 2, 3. So I can add at the 4th place an item, so I can just write 4, and in here I can add a new item, so something like this, and then I can print my array something like this. Save your code and refresh it, and now my array has 5 items in it. Now there is one more way of pushing element in the array. So for example, you want to add one more item in the names, so you can use names dot push, and then you can just add a new name. So for example, some new name, something like this, okay, and then save your code and refresh your web page, and now you can see one more item is added to your array. So you can use push or using this index method to add to an array. Now there are some methods associated with arrays which you can use to use the arrays. Now for example, I want to know how many number of elements are contained inside the array. So I can use a method called length. So just use the name of the array, which is names in my case, then use dot and then call length method on it, and then it will give you the number of elements inside the array, right? So save your code and refresh it, and it says 6, which is true because these are 4 names and these 2 names we have pushed outside the array, right? Now there is one more method which you can call on the array, which is called sort, and this will sort all the element in the array. For example, you have names here, so it will sort the names according to the alphabetical order, right? So save your code and refresh it, and now you can see these names are sorted in alphabetical order. So B first and then J then M, then T. Right? Now it's not necessary that array must have the elements of same data types. So for example, I want strings and integer in my array. It's totally valid. So for example, I'm going to delete this name, and instead of this name I'm going to add this integer 500, right? And save my code and refresh my web page, and it's going to add this integer to the array, and it's no problem. Right? Now there is a different way of declaring an array also, and which is something like this. So var name1, for example, is equal to new array, and then in the brackets you can provide the elements. Okay, so for example, I can just copy this and paste it here, and it's totally valid. Okay, and I'm going to declare it above here, and I'm going to call this name1 here and save it and refresh my web page, and it's going to give me the same result as we have seen earlier. Okay, now you can use some more examples with arrays. For example, I will delete this array declaration and this also, and I will use this name, and I will call a method called pop. Okay, and what this method does is it removes the last element from the array. Okay, so I will just call this array here and save my code and refresh it, and you can see I only have 3 elements in the array. 4th is removed. Okay, now if you want to remove the first element from the array, you call a method called shift here. Okay, and it's going to remove the first element from the array. So let's save it and refresh the web page, and now you can see the first element Tom is removed, and the second, third and fourth elements are here. Okay, now if you want to add some element to the first place, for example at index 0, you can use unshift method. So just write names.unshift, and then you can add the value here, for example Ben, and then save your code and refresh the web page, and now you can see at the 0th index this name is added. So in this way you can use arrays in JavaScript. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will see how to use switch statements in JavaScript. So let's get started. For example, I have a variable called score. Okay, and this indicates the score of some student, and I will initialize it with 90, right? And I'm also going to initialize our variable called result to print some result. Okay, now the syntax of switch statement. So switch statement is also a kind of statement in which you evaluate some expression, and then on the basis of expression you give your result, or you perform some piece of code. Okay, so let's see what is the syntax of switch statement. So you use the keyword called switch, and then inside these round bracket comes your expression, and then inside the curly braces comes the cases on the basis of which you execute some code. Okay, so this is some expression, and expression means some condition on the basis of which you decide which case you will perform. Okay, so expression can be score here. Okay, so for example, a student is scoring some marks, and on the basis of marks we want to display some messages. Okay, so in this case score is an expression, and we are evaluating scores, and on the basis of scores of student we will perform some code, and inside this switch statement comes the cases. Okay, so you can add a case something like this with this colon, and then you can perform your code. So for example, I just want to assign result is equal to some text, for example very good. Okay, and once your code is finished, you break your switch statement with a keyword called break. Okay, now in front of a case comes your value. So for example, if we want to say if our score is equal to 90, then we will return a result very good. So here comes your value. Okay, now you can define multiple switch cases inside a switch statement. For example, something like this. And here you can say student scored 60. Here you can say student scored 40 for example. And here we can just return good. And if he scores 40, we can return okay, right? Now, for example, student doesn't score 90 or 60 or 40. Then in which case it will go? Okay, so for this we have a default case, right? So just write a default keyword here, and then you say result is equal to unknown. Okay, so default condition is executed when neither of the cases are true. Okay, so if the student doesn't score 90 or 60 or 40, then it will go to the default case, right? Now let's return our result and print it using this document.getElement by ID, and demo is the ID of this paragraph tag here, and I'm just assigning a result, which is this variable here. Okay, so save your code and just notice here that score right now is 90, right? So I will refresh my web page here, and it says very good because score is 90. Let's say score is now 60. Save your code and refresh it once again, and now the message is printed good, right? Now let's say score is 45, which doesn't satisfy any of the cases. Then when we go to our web page and refresh it, it says unknown, right? So this situation is handled by the default condition, right? Now you can also use some situations in switch cases without the break keyword, right? So for example, I can also write case is equal to 100 here, and for example one more case 95 here. And if you notice here, I am not writing the break keyword after this switch case, right? So what happens when you don't add a break keyword after a switch case? So let's save our code, and let's say our score is 95, okay, which is this condition, and save our code and refresh the web page, and it says very good. Okay, so what's happening here? So in the case where the break is not added, then it will jump to the next case, and whatever the code in the next case, it will execute that code. Okay, so the program flow will be something like this. Our switch case will evaluate 100 and the case is not 100, so it will go to 95, and it finds that 95 is the expression we are looking for, but there is no break here. So I will switch to the next case, and in here the case is 90, and here this message is assigned to the result, and then we find that here is the break, and then the switch case is broken, and then you got your result. Okay, so if you don't add a break after your case, it will jump to the next case and perform the code which is under the next case, and then if it has break, then it will break your switch statement. Okay, so if you want to evaluate multiple expression continuously, then you use case without a break. So in this way you can use switch statements in JavaScript. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video we will see how to use loops in JavaScript, and in this particular video I'm going to show you how to use while loop and do while loop in JavaScript. So first of all, what is a loop? A loop is a piece of statement which will allow you to perform some piece of code again and again until and unless some condition is fulfilled, right? So let's say I have a variable called a and I will initialize it with 0. Okay, and I will initialize one more variable called result, and this I will use it to display some value. Now let's see how the while loop looks like. So you use while keyword, and then here comes your condition, right? And then in the curly braces comes your code if your condition in this bracket is met. Okay, so this is for the condition, this round bracket is for the condition, and if your condition is met, then the code inside these curly braces will be executed. Okay, and if the condition is not met, then it will once again perform the same code until and unless this condition is met. So let's say we want to have the condition a is less than 10. Okay, so right now obviously a is equal to 0, which is less than 10, so it will go inside the while loop and it will perform the code, right? So for example, I will just say result is equal to a. Okay, and for the simplicity I will just add a break tag here. So just add this break tag so that it will be printed on the different line every time this code is executed, right? And this result I'm just passing here, which will print this using this demo ID, and I have this paragraph with ID demo here. So in this paragraph this will be executed, right? Now here if you notice that this condition will never be fulfilled if we write this kind of code, right? This condition is infinite condition because we are not increasing the value of a, so the value of a is constant, so our while loop will go on performing the code again and again infinitely, right? And this kind of infinite loop are also useful in some conditions, but right now in our condition what we want to do here is, let's say we want to increase the value of a by 1 every time it goes inside the loop. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this plus symbol or concatenation symbol here, and what it's going to do is it's going to add the value of this string to this result every time it executes this code. And one more thing what I'm going to do here is I'm going to initialize this result with empty string, something like this. Okay, so the value of result will not be ambiguous when it's initialized, right? So save your code and run it here, and now you can see this is printing from 0 to 9. Okay, so what happens here? So in your while loop we know that this condition is obviously true, 0 is less than 10, so it will go inside the while loop and perform this code. And what this code is doing, it's just assigning the value of a in the result, right? And then it goes here in the next line and it increases the value of a by 1, so the value of a becomes 1 here because it was initially 0, and then we add 1 here using this code, and the value of a is 1, so it goes once again in the loop and it check 1 is less than 10, yes, so it performed this code once again and add this string to the result once again, and then the value of a becomes 2 here, right? So in this way it will keep on looping 2, 3, 4 until 9 reaches, and in this case also this condition is true and it will increase the value of a by 1, and then value of a becomes 10, which in here is false. So 10 is not less than 10, so this condition is not true, so this code will not be executed, right? So that's why it's printing the value from 0 to 9. Okay, now you can have something like this: a is less than or equal to 10. Okay, so in this case it will print from 0 to 10 because we are also evaluating equal to now. Okay, or you can have different conditions here. For example, a is greater than or a is not equal to 10. So you can evaluate different kind of conditions in this while loop here. Okay, so this is how your while loop works. Now there is one more kind of loop which is called do while loop. Okay, and the syntax of this do while loop is something like this. So you use the keyword do first, and then after the curly braces you say while. Okay, and then the semicolon. Okay, so in here it's the same. You evaluate some condition inside these brackets, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to declare one more variable, and I'm going to name it as b, and I'm going to initialize it with 0, and this b I'm going to evaluate in this while loop condition. So b is for example less than or equal to 10, the same situation which we have evaluated in here. Okay, and we will just copy the same code from here and paste it in do while loop. And let's define one more variable, for example result1, which is for do while loop, result1. Okay, and let's define one more paragraph tag, and this is demo1. And here also I will define one more document.getElementById by id for demo1, and here I will print result1. Okay, and this will be b and this will be b. Okay, so let's see what happens. This is our while loop and this is our do while loop. Okay, so let's save the code and refresh the web page, and you can see here it prints the value from 0 to 10 using the while loop. And once again when I go down, it prints the value of 0 to 10 using the do while loop. So they are working in a same manner, right? So you will say, what's the difference between them if they are working in the same manner? So the basic difference between while loop and do while loop is that while loop evaluates the condition first and then executes your code, while the do while loop performs your code for the first time and then evaluates your condition, right? So do while loop, no matter what, at least one will execute the code inside these curly braces even if this condition is false. So it's logical, right? It says do first and then evaluate the condition, and in here we are first evaluating the condition and then executing the code. So let's say we are evaluating that a is, for example, -1, right? And in here also as b we are evaluating the condition -1, which is false because b is equal to 0, right? And in the while loop also a is equal to 0, right? So save your code and refresh the web page, and it prints 0, which is due to this do loop. So let's say we say do, and here we say while, so we can recognize from which line this 0 is printed. So just save your code and refresh it once again, and you see once after do is printed then 0 is printed, right? So it's coming from this line. Okay, so what's happening here? So here this condition is false, so this code will not be executed. But in here in the do while loop, first the code is executed and then the condition is evaluated. So this code is executed once and then it goes to while loop and it checks whether this condition is true or false, and it's false, so it's not going to loop it once again. So this is the basic difference between while loop and do while loop. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please write, comment, subscribe, and bye for now. Hello guys, welcome to the next video on JavaScript tutorial for beginners. In this video, we will see how to use for loops in JavaScript. In the last video, we have seen how to use while loop and do while loop in JavaScript. So for loop is also a kind of loop which you can use to execute your piece of code again and again, right? So let's see what is the basic syntax of for loop, and then we will see why for loop is convenient and how it's used. Okay, so in here you just need to use a for keyword, and inside these round brackets comes three statements which I'm going to tell you in a moment, and then in the curly braces comes your code. Okay, now in here comes three statements which are separated by these semicolons, right? First statement which comes here is the initialization of a variable. So if you remember in the last video when we have seen this while loop, we have initialized the value of a is equal to 0 here, right at the top. And for loop allows you to initialize your variables inside this bracket. Okay, so for example, you want to initialize a instead of here, you want to initialize it here, then you can do it with the help of for loop, right? Then second statement comes here is the condition, which is same as this condition which you have given in the while loop. So second statement is the condition which you want to satisfy. Okay, and third statement is the increment or decrement, whatever you want. So for example, in the while loop we have to do this increment inside the while loop, but in the for loop it allows you to increment this value of a, for example, in these bracket itself. Okay, so the for loop allows you to initialize your variable, compare your variable, and increment your variable in a single line, right? So this is really convenient when you want to iterate over some array, for example, right? And let's say we want to just print the same result here. Okay, and I will just comment this code for the while loop and save my code and refresh my web page, and it prints 0 to 10, right? So in a lesser number of lines we have performed the same functionality as we have done in the while loop. Okay, so this you can do here as a third statement, this comparison you can do here as a second statement, and this initialization you can do here as a first statement. Okay, now it's not necessary that you need to initialize something here. You can initialize the value of a here and it's totally fine, and you can leave this first statement as blank also, and when you refresh your page the result will be same. Okay, or you can initialize the value of result. So for example, you want to initialize the value of result instead of a, you can just do something like this here. So you initialize the value of result here, and then you just refresh your web page and the result will be same also. Okay, so you can initialize the value of a here, and for example you want to initialize the value of result also, you can do with a comma separator. Okay, so you initialized a, comma, initialize the second value, and then after the semicolon comes your condition. So if you want to initialize multiple values, you can do it separated by comma. Okay, so just save your code and refresh it, and result is same. Now for example, I have an array called names here, and I want to print the value of all the array one by one. what I can do here is I can leave this a as it is and result also as it is. So initialization is fine here, but as a condition where we can give here a is less than the length of names. So names dot length, okay, and this will give you the length of this array, right? And then you can increment the value by 1. And in here, if you want to print the names, what we can do here is we can use the index property of array using this a. So just write a, and in the square bracket you just pass a, okay, because a is initially 0 and it will increment 1 by 1 in the for loop. So it will iterate over each index 1 by 1 and it will print the names, right? So save your code and refresh your web page, and you can see all the names are printed 1 by 1 here. Now there is one more alternate way of using for loop, and that's called for in loop. And the syntax of that loop is you just use keyword for, and then you use your variable. For example, you have declared a variable var x, for example, right? And then you just transfer here x, and then in, and then you can iterate over some object. Now object in JavaScript looks something like this. So it will look something like a JSON which has associative property. So for example, I declare an object called student, and it has some properties like name, surname, and age, and we can give the value of name something like this, surname something like this, and age something like this in the curly braces. Okay, so this is called an object in JavaScript. So you can iterate over this student object something like this. So you just write x in student, and what it will do is it will iterate over every element in this object. For first name, and then second surname, and third age, and then it will transfer the value in here as x, okay, and then you can do the same. So I will just pass this result here, and I'm going to comment this for loop for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the student and pass it here, and don't forget to give the value of x here inside this square brackets, and save your code and refresh your web page, and now it gives the name, surname, and age as the value, right? So in here what you are doing, you are iterating over the object, and this will give you the value of each object. So first it will give you the value of name, then it will give you the value of surname, and then it will give you the value of the age. Okay, so in this way you can use for loop in JavaScript. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please rate, comment, subscribe, and bye for now.